So I'll ask the question that's on everybody's mind this week. What exactly is going on with Dr. Jordan Peterson? It looks like he's lost a lot of his male audience, and we're going to take a look at how exactly that occurred. Also, we have news that a doctor who specializes in Parkinson's disease has visited the White House 8 different times. 8 different times, my friends. No big deal. Everything is fine. It's totally fine. And Amber Rose is speaking at the RNC. What are your thoughts about that? Because I'm going to tell you mine. All that coming up on Candace. Dr. Jordan Peterson. Okay, I just want to say at the top, I obviously have met and worked with him. He has always been extremely kind to me. So nothing that I'm going to say should be taken personally. I am just taking a look at something objectively that, of course, is fascinating, interesting to watch, because it's really difficult to capture into words the international level of celebrity that this Canadian professor of psychology reached on YouTube. A celebrity which began back in 2017 when he began dropping lectures that were aimed at men with lessons pertaining to how they could order their lives. We all remember this. He subsequently dropped a book in 2018 that was entitled 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. And just so we're clear, that book sold over 10 million copies worldwide. That is, nobody sells 10 million copies worldwide in any book. It's unbelievable. And shortly thereafter, he embarked on an international world tour. I'm not kidding. He sold out stadiums across the world. And I remember watching this celebrity, just watching his star rise, and I was absolutely fascinated, as I'm sure a lot of women were, partially because there are very few people that achieve celebrity in their later years. Jordan Peterson is 62 years old. So we were watching a person become a 62-year-old rock star. That in and of itself is quite impressive. And people definitively do not achieve that level of celebrity by being a professor. So it was just be amazed. I was absolutely amazed. But there was also a piece of me, and again, I am sure that women can relate to this, that if I'm being honest, I just didn't really quite comprehend it. Again, it wasn't for me, it was for men, but I didn't find any of the things that he was sharing to be particularly earth-shattering in his 12 rules. And I was shocked by the male response to it. So I'm going to give you just a few examples of the rules that were in the book. One was set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Okay. Another one was pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. A third was tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Another was be precise in your speech. And the last one was pet a cat when you encounter one on the street, which that makes it sound silly, but essentially he was saying, don't miss the small things in life. And I don't know if I wasn't so amazed by this, because a lot of these kind of are repackaged biblical proverbs, and you should read the Bible. And I'm sure that that obviously was a source for him. But I was really, I guess, taken aback by the male response to it in a way that was meaningful for me. I actually learned a lot because I realized that a lot of men were feeling disordered. I recognized that for men to have the response that they did, clearly something was missing in their lives. And I was glad that they had this male example to say, hey, listen, this is a little thing, but make your bed. Make your bed in the morning because it means something to make your bed. Stand up straight, kind of notoriously walk like a lobster, have some self-confidence, have some self-respect. And again, it made me reflect on just how far feminism had gotten, that we were making men feel so deflated that it took just one man, a professor, to stand up and say, hey, you don't have to feel that way, and your life should have purpose, and your life should have meaning, and you should do things that give your life purpose and give your life meaning. So I was like, kudos, love it. And as I said, I got to meet him multiple times. I've spoken at events with him, and I was very impressed with him. Then things started to shift. So let's recap what happened. In January of 2018, so this was really at the peak of his celebrity, he appeared on Sam Harris's podcast, which was entitled Waking Up with Sam Harris, and he seemed rather incoherent when he was being asked for a basic definition of truth. And people recognized this. Perhaps they didn't overthink it, but a couple of months later, in July of 2018, he sat down with Joe Rogan talking about that moment, talking about why he was incoherent. And here is what he said. He said that it was due to the fact that he had consumed some apple cider. Take a listen.
But I didn't want to not do it because
apple cider. Like, what was it doing?
Sulfites in it.
What was it doing to you?
Oh, it produced an overwhelming sense of impending doom. And I seriously mean overwhelming. Like, there's no way I could have lived like that if that would have lasted for... See, Michaela knew by that point that it would probably only last a month. And I was like...
A month?
Yeah,
from
a month.
Cider?
Oh, I didn't sleep that month. I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all. I didn't sleep at all for 25 days.
How is that possible? That
I'll tell you how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Not
and
good.
This is from cider.
I feel like Joe Rogan is all of us. I'm listening to that, and it doesn't pass the sniff test. I'm just going, wait, what, apple cider? You didn't sleep for how long? What are you talking about? He brings up Michaela, by the way. That's his daughter. We're going to get into it. That explanation does not make sense to me whatsoever. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to know how everybody's body reacts to apple cider, but I just don't think that you wouldn't sleep for that long because of it. Now, what followed thereafter was that in February of 2020, so that's almost a year and a half later, news broke that Jordan Peterson was seeking emergency drug treatment in Russia. According to his family, and this was in a CBC News article from February of 2020, Jordan Peterson's family says he has sought emergency drug detox treatment in Russia after several failed attempts to overcome his dependence on a potent anti-anxiety medicine. They obviously spoke to his daughter, Michaela, as she speaks out on behalf of her father a lot. She also has her own podcast and talks a lot about growing up with him and what she's learned. And this is a direct quote from her. He's had to spend 4 weeks in the ICU in terrible shape, but with the help of some extremely competent and courageous doctors, he survived. She goes on to say, the decision to bring him to Russia was made in extreme desperation when we couldn't find any better option. It goes on, the article says that his family says he had been taking the drug for years to mitigate lingering anxiety following a severe autoimmune reaction to food. His dependence reportedly started last spring after doctors increased his dosage, to help him cope with stress as his wife, Tammy, battled kidney cancer. Okay, so immediately have some questions there. So we're saying that there was a food reaction, and then in response to the food reaction, they put you on anxiety medicine, and then the dosage was wrong, and he apparently had what appears to me to be a drug overdose. And Michaela ends the article by basically telling them, like, you know, he'll speak out when he's ready. And that moment came in 2021. Jordan Peterson was ready to talk about it. This is a New York Post headline entitled, "He was suicidal and addicted to benzos." From that article, it reads that he was struggling with an addiction to benzos prescribed to him after a violent reaction to a strict meat and greens diet. Okay. And then in regards to his cider, the apple cider overdose or the apple cider reaction, the New York Post writer put this, quote, Peterson has previously claimed that he didn't sleep for 25 days during this time, but the longest period of human sleep deprivation ever recorded is only 11 days, the paper notes. So what they're saying is he lied. He must have lied. I mean, that's unless, or he just broke this record from 11 days. He not only doubled it, he added some. He just added 14 days to the longest record ever held of sleep deprivation. Or, as I said, Jordan Peterson was not being honest, which would mean that he violated one of his 12 rules. And to be clear, back when he was saying this about having not slept because of apple cider, the internet immediately knew that he was lying. Here are some of the tweets from people regarding his cider overdose. One person writes, he's describing benzo withdrawal to a T, an overwhelming sense of impending doom and horrific insomnia. Another user writes, exactly what I just said. Bro had the withdrawals in the worst kind of way. Been clean and sober for over 12 years now, but benzos are harder to stop than heroin. This last person writes, he didn't say apple cider vinegar, he said cider. My inference is that it was alcoholic cider, and his reaction sounds like benzo withdrawal probably was combining booze and benzos for a while. In any event, we aren't getting the full story. And lastly, this person writes, when I was detoxing off of methadone, I didn't sleep for almost 3 months. It is possible you're in a twilight, half awake, barely asleep with no real rest. If you've never been through addiction and or detox from anything, then you have no idea what you're talking about. So yes, the internet, people that have lived through this understood that what he was actually going through, far from the story that he was painting, was withdrawal. Good old fashioned withdrawal, which a lot of drug users obviously know can lead to insomnia. Now, jumping back into the New York Post narrative, now again, Jordan is speaking out about having had this addiction. Jordan said he was prescribed a low dose of antidepressants to help him recover. I don't know if it's from the meat detox. I honestly can't follow. But the dosage was increased after Peterson sunk into depression following his wife Tammy's cancer diagnosis. So I'm going to be honest about when all this was coming out and it was all very confusing and it wasn't quite clear. Is this a food allergy? Is this depression? Is this just somebody who's addicted to pills and doesn't want to quite tell the public? I was having private conversations with people and people that are in the conservative movement going, I don't see how he's going to recover from this moment, because it just seems to me that if your entire brand is built on telling people how to order their lives, and then what becomes apparent is that your life is in disarray, how do they trust you again? I think that's the big question. How do they trust you again? How do they rely on you? And I had to examine myself at that moment, because people were saying, oh no, it's all about the comeback. And I believe in comebacks, but I believe that comebacks can only happen when you are radically honest. And I don't think people sensed, as you can see by those comments, that he was being radically honest in what had occurred to him. Instead, they felt that he was kind of trying to give a PR spin to what may have just been a good old-fashioned drug addiction. But then I thought, maybe I have a chip on my shoulder, because listen, I didn't have a pretty childhood and I've seen drug addiction, and I do have a very low tolerance for it. I'll be honest. Like when people are talking about their addiction struggles, and I'm thinking, man, I wish addiction wasn't an option for me. Like people that just turn to drugs as a solution for every problem, it's hard for me to feel bad, because there are people that grow up in sets and circumstances that are so much worse, and they don't turn to drinking and they don't turn to drugs. So I checked myself and I said, you know what, Candace, that is actually you just having a chip on your shoulder. And maybe it's true that it's amazing, and maybe Jordan Peterson, having a male audience that he has, will actually come out of this better and stronger, because he will share with the world how he was able to overcome this and reorder his life, write another book, how to reorder your life after a chaotic scene. But that wasn't the case. I think men felt like they couldn't trust him. They never felt that he was fully honest, and it felt like there was a lot of him and his daughter kind of trying to condition this in a different vein, whether it was talking about his wife's cancer diagnosis, and I hope that she's okay. I think that she is, which is amazing. I know that she's recently come to faith. There never seemed to be that big, radical, honest moment that came from him. Then we fast forward to October 7th, 2023, a day that will live in conservative media infamy, because it just was a moment where people behaved in ways that the public is never going to forget, in my view. And on that day, Jordan Peterson did not tweet like Jordan Peterson, which is to say he did not tweet in a calm, rational manner. Here is what he tweeted. He wrote, "Give 'em hell, Netanyahu, enough is enough." And he began trending, and he lost a huge following, partially because he was perhaps not aware, because I'm sure, listen, he's 62 years old, he probably is not aware of the demographics of his audience, but it turns out that Jordan Peterson had a huge following of Muslims behind him, and they felt that this response was not calm. It was not dictated by rationality or the logos, which Jordan Peterson loves to speak about. He speaks about how postmodernism wants you to abandon your logos. It wants you just to react emotionally without properly thinking. And it seemed that that's exactly what Jordan Peterson did on October 7th. He wasn't asking for people to be calm. He was participating in the madness of crowds that he often speaks about. And people did not like that. And you saw people in the Muslim community saying, we will never listen to another word that he ever says, because he has not used his platform to talk about some of the hell that Muslims have also been enduring. Time has obviously passed since then. We're almost at a full year, just shy of a full year of October 7th. And I don't think his audience has fully recovered. But I can tell you that what just took place online at the end of last week was very strange. I was watching this back and forth, and it was extremely strange. So I will set this up for you. Again, Michaela Peterson is his daughter, and she communicates a lot of what is happening with JP. So people see her as auxiliary to him. Now, to be fair, she is not Jordan Peterson. Of course, she is not Jordan Peterson. And we can't say that every word that she says should somehow reflect on what her father's viewpoints are. But she did tweet this. She wrote, "Yes, I think the Nazis on X equating Jews with rats and using hashtags like filth should have more content moderation and censorship. No, I'm not retracting that statement." Okay, what? You're just straight up calling for censorship. I mean, saying using the hashtag filth, that is literally an English word. And you can say that word whenever you want. In fact, rather notoriously, I use the word filth to describe Rabbi Shmuley. And I use that word to describe Rabbi Shmuley because Rabbi Shmuley is filth. I meant what I said. This man harassed me for 2 years. I would be really, honestly, shocked and disgusted if somebody would dictate that I'm the one that deserves to be censored after this man harassed me for 2 years. And I never called for his censorship or his hag daughter censorship. I just said, you're filth because you are filth. And that is my right to use that term. So for Michaela to make such a strong statement calling for censorship is not going to reflect well on her father, particularly because her father has said things like this in the past. Take a listen.
Freedom of speech is a cardinal value, not because it gives you the freedom to speak, exactly, but because without that freedom, we can't think, we can't improve our institutions.
I totally agree with what Jordan Peterson is saying there. It is a cardinal value, and it is true that we have to be free to critique people and to critique our institutions. It's the only way that things get better. It's the only way that the truth can get out. As soon as you start censoring speech, the question is who's in control of dictating what should or should not be censored. We just went through COVID. I mean, the COVID stars online saying, you can't say this, you can't say this. These were radical lefties, and it was a very bad thing. Jordan Peterson has also tweeted this in the past pertaining to freedom of speech. Free speech is not just another value, it's the foundation of Western civilization. Again, I agree with that. So it's quite shocking that she would take this perspective, but again, she is not her father, that people should be censored for referring to people as rats or referring to them as filth. But what was more shocking was when Nick Fuentes, who is considered the leader of the Groyper movement, wrote this in response to her. He wrote, "Your dad literally called me a rat last week. Thank you for exposing yourself and revealing who you really work for. Both of you freaks should be deported to Israel since you love it so much they can have you." And he attached a tweet from Jordan Peterson where Jordan Peterson did in fact write this to Nick Fuentes. He wrote, "You, at Nick Fuentes, really are a psychopathic rat." So yeah, now we're in a conflict here. She is calling for the censorship of her father, right? I mean, if you're saying the standard is just calling somebody a rat, and it is not just because it is a phrase that's being directed at Jews, but because calling people rats is wrong, then your father would have to be censored. And so when Nick Fuentes raised this obvious conundrum to her, here's what she wrote back. She wrote back, "Oh my God, were you called a rat? Did that hurt? I work for myself, you loser. And I know that Jews' success is due to their above average IQ. But I'm sure blaming a nation of people for your failings is easier for you." I'm sorry, what? So now she's like, aha, yeah, you're a rat, or did that hurt your feelings? That just doesn't seem like a stable or a rational response to someone pointing out the fact that your father just said something that you're calling for censorship for. Or are you saying that it should only be censored if it is being directed at a person that is Jewish? She's not clear on that. But what is clear is that Jordan Peterson jumped into this and doubled down on calling somebody a rat. Here's what he wrote. He wrote, "I apologize for calling you a rat, Nick Fuentes. Rats are just animals. They happen to be an enemy of mankind. So they are like you in that regard, but they are merely acting on instinct, whereas you are motivated by a willful ignorance so deep that it's kind of a miracle, in combination with a profound malevolence. So I was unfair to the rats. Hence my apology. Take note, Michaela." He further added, "I don't regret the psychopath moniker, however. You and your followers, I know your type, buddy boy, but you don't know mine." Okay, so parking aside the fact that it's written in sonnet form, which is something that I don't quite understand why he's doing that, Jordan Peterson has built himself as somebody who is calm, who is rational, who relies on logic, who is a person who believes in radical free speech. He's now coming to the aid of his daughter and essentially doubling down on calling, this is again a 62-year-old man, calling a 24-year-old a rat. And what is the reason, by the way? Because we should also say what is it that Nick Fuentes said that garnered that response from Jordan Peterson. And Nick Fuentes wrote one word on Twitter. He wrote Jews. Now, what was that in response to? Well, somebody asked the question. We know that Joe Biden is not in control of the White House, so who is in control of the White House? And Nick Fuentes wrote a one-word response, Jews. He's saying Jews are in control of the White House, and that garnered a response from Jordan Peterson calling him a psychopathic rat. Now, we all know that Nick Fuentes has branded himself as somebody who expressly hates Zionism. He expressly hates Israel. And he is saying that Jews in the White House are now obviously in control because Joe Biden is not. Now, to be fair, the Times of Israel has noted in the past, this is an actual article from them, all the Jews Biden has tapped for top roles in his new administration. This is from back in 2021 when Joe Biden first was inaugurated as president. And it goes on to say, Joe Biden filled the months before inauguration day, lining up a slate of cabinet secretaries, assistants, and advisors, many of them Jewish. It goes on to give us a rundown of all of the Jewish names, all of the Jews that they are saying are in his cabinet. You have Anthony Blinken, you have David Cohen, the CIA director, you have Merrick Garland, the attorney general, you have Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence, you have Ronald Klain, the chief of staff. So it seems a weird tweet for him to be so disturbed about. Now, again, it's likely because Nick Fuentes has a very long background of focusing his attention on Israel and Zionism, and that's what he is reacting to. Also because Nick Fuentes has called out Jordan Peterson explicitly for a very long time as somebody who he believes has more of an allegiance to Israel than he does to Western civilization in general. Essentially, that he would put Israel before he would put Canada and before he would put America. Now, I don't know if that's a fair critique of Jordan Peterson, but I do know that it is off-brand for him to respond by calling someone a psychopathic rat. I mean, calling somebody a name, calling somebody an animal when you are billing yourself, right, as the calm, rational psychologist, doctor who insists on logic and that the better ideas should win is just going to be off-brand. But we should also be honest here that while people are pretending this is about Jordan Peterson versus the Groypers, or pretending that every person that we're seeing right now that is having a battle right now, it's due to the Groypers, that is not what we are watching, right? Like I said, this began long before it arrived between a beef between Michaela and Jordan Peterson and her father. It really began with people feeling like they don't trust the voices that are in the media. And Jordan Peterson is one of these voices. And that distrust in Jordan Peterson actually began when he wasn't radically honest about his addiction. And then it began further when they saw him basically not behaving in the way that he instructs others to behave. You know, there is a famed expression, those that can't do, teach. And people are wondering if Jordan Peterson is one of these individuals. He does not live his life in order, but he teaches order. Virtually everything that we've seen happen has seemed quite chaotic in his life. His correspondence with his daughter, watching this on Twitter, genuinely was just chaotic. I thought, this is chaos. What is this? Why do we have a psychologist and his daughter, and his daughter's calling for the speech censorship, and he's not agreeing with her necessarily, but he's doubling down on using the word rat, which she says needs to be censored. It felt like chaos. It didn't feel like 12 simple rules. And so that is why I believe that a lot of men have fallen out of love with Jordan Peterson, because they don't perceive him as somebody that is living his life honestly. I would, by the way, jump at the opportunity to have a discussion with Jordan Peterson. I have no bad feelings about him whatsoever. Like I said, he treated me extremely well. Every time I've ever spoken to him, seen him, he has been very kind. But this is a moment. We are watching a shift in politics. And I would love to know if Jordan Peterson believes that this shift is simply because there are people that are so awful and so rat-like and not deserving of our time, or if he recognizes that there's something larger that's happening and he's perhaps developing tunnel vision and thinking that it's because of the Groyper movement, when in reality, people are losing trust in the institutions and they're perceiving him as part and parcel of those institutions now. Anyways, again, I would welcome that conversation with you, Dr. Peterson. It would be a pure conversation, by the way. Pure talk is what I am all about. You guys know that I appreciate all of the brands that are not afraid to stand by me, those who allow me a platform to speak my truth and to speak about the most important issues that we face as a country. And sometimes it makes people uncomfortable, but that is what we have to do. And that's why I'm happy that Pure Talk is still my wireless company. So if you have not yet made the switch, I encourage you to do that now, because Pure Talk puts you on America's most dependable 5G network, offers unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data for just $20 a month. So why would you still be with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile? You can literally get the best coverage, 100% US-based customer service, plus your family can save up to $1,000 a year. You'll also be supporting American jobs, mine included, and it is also a U.S. veteran-led company. And the great charities that Pure Talk supports, like America's Warrior Partnership, who is on the front lines preventing veteran suicide. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Owens and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/Owens and support a wireless company who shares your values. All right, guys, now it's time to get into some stories. All right, so before we get into this first story, you guys, you may have seen me showing you this on Instagram, but we've got these amazing shirts that you can now get at clubcandace.com. It is Man of the Year, and of course, the Man of the Year is in fact Brigitte Macron. Look at the way he just took over France elections and how he, statutorily raped his student and then still became the first man of France. It's incredible. Head to clubcandace.com. So everything is obviously fine in America. Well, the establishment, and by the establishment, I mean the CIA. It is so obvious, you guys, the CIA is running everything and that Biden is a puppet. It is such a ridiculous thing to call any of these things conspiracy theories. You just watched Vladimir Putin when he sat down with Tucker say he doesn't deal with presidents. He deals directly with the CIA. He knows who's in control. Maybe you should wake up and realize who's in control. But in case you needed more evidence of that, obviously, the entire establishment protected Joe Biden. Of course, those mean MAGA people, those mean little MAGA heads are out there saying that he's sick and degenerative, and that is not real. They just protected that narrative for 4 years until the debate happened, and then overnight, not even overnight, actually that same night, they suddenly were like, he's done. So that means somebody behind the scenes has made a decision that he is done, and now they are allowed to tell the truth. That is how it works. They suddenly all tell the truth so they can look back and say, we were always telling the truth. What do you mean? Look at this clip of us. We acknowledged that something was wrong with him. Yeah, no, we're not going for that. Well, the New York Times anyways is now admitting or telling the truth, they've known this forever, obviously, that a Parkinson's expert visited the White House 8 times in 8 months. Now, do you guys think that they just found this out? Of course they didn't, but they're willing to tell you guys because they have somebody planned that's supposed to take over for Joe Biden. I'm wondering who that is. You're wondering who that is. But this is fascinating because now we're at least getting close to a diagnosis. The White House is admitting that, yes, he has met with a neurologist only 3 times in more than 3 years in his office and implied that the doctor's visits were related to treating other people. So, they're kind of trying to parse reality here, not exactly giving any details. And of course, this is very frustrating for Karine Jean-Pierre because as the press secretary, she's basically been protected by the mainstream media as she has given answers for nothing. And suddenly they're all turning on her and they're demanding answers. And you can sense her frustration. Take a listen.
Every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're
Dr.
asking
Kevin
me.
Kennard, come to the White House.
But I
specifically about
also
the
said to you,
condition.
Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names.
Well, for security reasons, we're going to need to know them, Corinne, because, this is our nation. So we're kind of concerned about national security. I don't know, Corinne. I think maybe you should give us some more answers regarding whether or not our president has Parkinson's disease. And I'm going to go ahead and assume he does, because otherwise you would be much more forthcoming about the details. Why else, by the way, would a Parkinson's disease expert be visiting the White House 8 times? Just asking you guys, like asking for a friend. Like, have you ever been like, hey, I just would like to hang out with a random Parkinson's disease expert. They just come and visit me all throughout the year. Clearly, they are seeing him because he is showing signs of Parkinson's disease. And what the New York Times is reporting is that the Parkinson's expert visited him and he came from the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. He went to that White House 8 times in 8 months from last summer through to this spring, including at least once for a meeting with President Biden's physician, according to official visitor logs, which apparently the New York Times just got access to. Before, they didn't have them. Now they suddenly have them, and they're realizing that there's been a pattern here. Now, to be clear about what we're actually talking about, and an expert went on to NBC and spoke about Parkinson's disease. Now, again, he has not treated Joe Biden, but he has definitely provided clarity on the situation. Take a listen.
Have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, oh, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordotically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. That's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
You could have diagnosed him from across the hall. And yes, of course, we know, oh no, when he does this. And we probably should have known that they all knew he had Parkinson's disease, people. Every last single one of them. So you can miss me entirely with these NBC News segments, pretending, oh my God, now we want to have the experts in to talk about what they're seeing. That is Dr. Tom Pitts, and he is obviously being honest. To be clear, he's a board-certified neurologist, but the problem is that he was asked to go on and to diagnose him way too late. Way too late. And so, yes, it does beg the question of who is controlling the White House. Obviously, it is, in fact, his cabinet that is controlling the White House. And it is, in fact, the CIA, which is directing and coordinating with his cabinet in terms of what they want done. And so we now have to think seriously about who they're going to replace him with, because that's done. It's already been decided. How they're going to do it, I'm not so clear on. When exactly they're going to do it, I'm not so clear on. But they have made the decision to get rid of Joe Biden. And if you are still a liberal, if you're still on the left and you are watching this play out and you actually believe that they just noticed it for the first time ever during the debates, you need to wake up. You genuinely need to wake up, because we are just ever so close to losing this country. And it is largely because of people who are still so deluded into having any remaining trust in our institutions, despite the fact that everything is on fire all around us as Americans. Everything that we see is on fire. And there are some people that are just still sitting there going, this is fine. I'm not one of those people. I am not one of those people whatsoever. I understand that you work hard to support yourself and to support your family. And it seems like it's difficult to do that when you continually are every month having to pay bills. You feel like you're taking a step back rather than moving forward. Sometimes the bills are higher than what you bring in monthly. You have to swipe that credit card to cover the difference, and the debt keeps adding up. But if you own a home, my friends at American Financing are who you need to call. They can help you break free from that cycle. American Financing is saving people just like you an average of $854 a month. Think about what you could be doing with an extra $800 a month every single month. You would not have to worry about those minimum monthly payments. And even better, it would cost you nothing to find out how much you can save. All it takes is a quick call to American Financing. If you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing today and start your journey towards being credit card and debt free. That's 800-795-1210. Call 800-795-1210. All right, guys. Obviously, Joe Biden is barely able to put together a statement because it looks like he has Parkinson's disease, and he's known for a very long time. And by the way, in a normal circumstance, we would be saying, oh my gosh, I feel obviously very bad for him. And there have been so many examples of people who are living with Parkinson's for a long time. And it is a struggle that people live with, but you can in fact live with Parkinson's and have a meaningful life. These are not normal circumstances, right? So this is not a normal circumstance. This isn't like somebody's grandfather at home that's going through this. This is the president of the United States who cannot put together a statement. That is problematic. But somebody who can put together a statement, who can put together sentences, is Amber Rose. Wow. Okay. So in case you missed it, Amber Rose, she is a model. She kind of notoriously hit the scene many moons ago when she began dating rapper Kanye West, and she's kind of stayed in the public sphere since. Well, she is now speaking at the RNC convention. She is slated to speak at the RNC convention next week. I'm going to show you this photo of her having announced that. On Instagram, she wrote, "Trump 2024, it's true. I'm speaking at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, #MAGA." And so she sort of came out as a Trump supporter. I think I showed you a few weeks back when she was wearing the MAGA hat and people were coming after her. She lost tons of followers. People were telling her she's canceled because obviously you're not allowed to be a conservative in Hollywood. But taking it a step further, if you can't be a conservative, you definitively cannot be a Trump supporter and speaking about it publicly. So she made a lot of no-nos by doing this. People were outraged. The TMZ began following her, and I showed you that video of her saying, "But Amber, what about the slut walk? Weren't you a slut? Aren't you with us? Aren't you a feminist? Aren't you woke?" And she basically shut them down. And I was proud of her because she just was basically saying, this is who I was. That may have been who I was, pardon, but this is who I am. And what the media constantly tries to tell people is that they can't transform. This has been kind of the biggest thing that I've even noticed about people that are radically pro-choice. They're not even being motivated by the fact that they believe these things anymore. They just are so ashamed of the fact that they have gotten abortions in the past, and they don't think they're allowed to transform. They don't believe that there is a platform for them that will welcome them and use their experiences to speak out to other women and stop them from making those same mistakes. You can transform. And so I am going to give Amber Rose the runway to transform. I actually had a conversation with her, and I sense that she is very genuine. She is at the very beginning of her journey. She had a lot of questions, and it was a very riveting discussion in understanding how she got to where she was when she started realizing that things were wrong. So yes, Amber Rose was legitimately a person that was putting on the slut walk, and she believed those things when she was putting on the slut walk. And then things transformed for her, and she wanted to understand why the things that she believed in suddenly were inauthentic, or recognizing that they were actually causing damage. And she wanted to understand why she wasn't allowed to be someone else in Hollywood. So she's pursuing those questions, and she will therefore find the answers. This does not turn her into a saint overnight. Give her grace. Allow her to learn slowly. It's one of the worst things about being a public figure is people, there's no grace, so they're going to expect her tomorrow, to be a Catholic nun, and that's not how these things happen. She's starting with the understanding that something is not right. She's starting with the understanding that her values in terms of what is happening in American society financially, in terms of what is happening in the treatment of our troops and the treatment of our veterans is something that no longer feels right to her. Let her be there. Let her speak out about what she actually believes, and don't put too much pressure on her. People need time to learn. People need time to transform. And I'm praying for her. I really am. I think that she could make a big difference for a lot of women who similarly feel trapped by the cycle of Hollywood and don't feel that they are allowed to transform. Speaking of pressure and speaking of feeling overwhelmed by pressure, I know that many people feel that sense when it comes to their taxes, especially if you have back taxes and are struggling with unfiled returns. With 20,000 new hires, thanks Biden, the IRS decided to step up enforcement since the end of COVID relief programs, issuing millions of pay-up notices in 2024. So if you're worried about IRS collection tactics, there is no need to face them alone. Tax Network USA can help you. Tax Network USA is the nation's premier tax relief firm with a history of negotiating over $1 billion in tax relief for clients. They offer a range of services, including penalty forgiveness, hardship programs, where you might not have to repay anything until your tax debt expires. They even offer in-compromise solutions for lump sum settlements. So whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, their team of experts is prepared to assist you. Even if you're behind on your taxes due to missing personal or business records, the Tax Network USA can help you, and they will guide you through the process of catching up. You do not want that monkey on your back. You literally do not want to have the burden of taxes on your back. It is very scary. Listen, tax season is over, and for the IRS, that means collections season has begun. Contact Tax Network USA for personalized support with your tax issues. Handling IRS matters without professional help is extremely risky. Protect your financial security by seeking guidance from Tax Network USA. So call 1-800-245-6000 or visit tnusa.com/Candace. Don't let the IRS's aggressive tactics control your life. Empower yourself with Tax Network USA's support and take charge of your financial future. TNUSA.com/Candace today. All right, guys, now it's time to jump into some of your comments. So regarding the Diddy episode, is he a Fed? Is he not a Fed? I think Diddy is a Fed. This person writes, the saying in the United States, no one is above the law, is one of the biggest lies of this country. Yes, there are many people above the law. In fact, they are the law. They are the people that are making the decisions in this country, which is why we should all be outraged. Regarding the most annoying person in the entire world that I found on Instagram, the influencer, the way that she wants to influence the world is by tearing apart women on their wedding day, by talking about how their dresses relate to slavery and racism and sexism and misogyny and the patriarchy and the Holocaust and everything. Yeah, she was absolutely awful. This person writes, watching influencers take down conservative women for wanting to be modest on their wedding day is the perfect example of how low our society has stooped. Yes, I totally agree with you. And make no mistake, it had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that she was conservative, which is why she brought up the sacrament. She's like, oh, why did she bring up a sacrament? Marriage is not a sacrament. I mean, she was just a total witch. That woman was a witch. That's all I can say about that. I don't want to hang out with her. I don't want to be around her. This person writes, I would love to see a survey of brides that wore modest dresses and brides that wore see-through, boobs hanging out, trashy dresses, and see who's still married 10 years later. Yes, that is another very good point. I believe that you should be modest, not just on your wedding day, but every day when you are in a relationship, because who are you trying to attract? And I just don't think these things end well. Like, it doesn't age well. Obviously, everybody knows that the most beautiful bride ever, she is the vibe, she is the moment forever, is Grace of Monaco. Come on, guys, here's a little picture. She just was absolutely stunning on her wedding day, and I think she is always the aim. I know we all have different tastes, but can everybody just emulate her forever and for always? And I will say that Olivia Culpo looked absolutely beautiful, and of course, she is dealing with the situation with so much grace and so much kindness, because she's a better person than me, because I would have just came right after that girl. I would just come at her like a spider monkey if she was at me like that on my wedding day. But, you know, back to acting like Princess Grace of Monaco. Now, a couple of comments also pertaining to Cat Williams. Remember, he predicted the Diddy thing, which was very interesting. It was almost like Cat Williams knew something. He was like, next year, it's all going to be revealed. And then suddenly it all was revealed in 2024. What is going on? This person writes, can you imagine Candace interviewing Cat Williams? Oh my goodness, that'll be wild. In the words of Kamala Harris, that episode will unburden us all from the lies of the past. Ladies and gentlemen, I am trying with all my might. Please tag him at Cat Williams. You need to talk to Candace Owens. Do it over and over again. I will sit in a room with Cat Williams for 6 hours and we will just go head to head on what we know. I'm like, what do you know? What do you know? No, what do you know? How come you brought up Baphomet? How come you knew about the transgender? What are you saying, Cat Williams? I want to know what's going on, Cat Williams. Me and Cat Williams need to be put in a room together for 6 hours. Everybody knows this. Conversation must be recorded. And so just harass him and we will do our best to make it happen. All right, guys, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. Reminding you to head to Club Candace. Here's a full, I mean, look at this shirt. Man of the Year. Look at him. Just absolutely love it. Please go support. Head to clubcandace.com. And of course, to all of you that are already supporting or are looking to support, you can go to locals.com and give a one-time donation so we can keep this show free, so I can keep talking my smack without anybody telling me what I can or cannot say. That's again, locals.com. Find us, one-time donation, or you become a monthly supporter. Either way, we appreciate you. Share the episodes if you can't afford to support us right now. I totally understand. And we will see you guys tomorrow.